Horner's explosive payback against Red Bull has just been revealed after stunning new negotiations with Ferrari. If you want all the inside details about what's going on behind the scenes, and how this could impact Lewis Hamilton, don't miss a second. This video was made for you. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. After 20 years of relentless dominance, cunning strategy, and unwavering control at Red Bull Racing, Christian Horner's unexpected removal has shaken the very core of Formula One. For 2 decades, he wasn't just the figurehead, he was the driving force behind Red Bull's transformation from upstart to dynasty. His influence stretched beyond the pit wall and into the political heart of the sport. His leadership style, a mix of sharp intellect, fierce loyalty, and behind-the-scenes maneuvering, turned Red Bull into an unstoppable machine. But now, that legacy has been abruptly severed, and the paddock is left in stunned silence, grasping for answers that the team has no intention of giving. The official announcement landed like a thunderclap, cold, emotionless, and devoid of the respect one might expect for a man who led the team to multiple world championships. No farewell ceremony, no public gratitude, no chance for Horner to address the team he helped mold. Instead, a sterile corporate message confirmed his departure, effective immediately. And beneath that carefully worded release lies a far more volatile story, a narrative of internal betrayal, escalating rivalries, and a slow but deliberate campaign to push Horner out of his own empire. In the final months, power began to shift away from Horner, steadily consolidating around the Verstappen camp. Helmut Marko, long a dominant force in driver development, began aligning more closely with Jos Verstappen, whose growing influence within the organization became impossible to ignore. Jos, fiercely protective of his son's interests, started challenging Horner's decisions behind closed doors, accusing him of prioritizing personal image over team success and hinting that he had grown too politically ambitious for his own good. Tensions deepened. Meetings became battlegrounds. Trust evaporated. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. Whispers turned into open resistance. Key technical voices no longer sought Horner's approval. Strategy calls were being questioned, and departments that once functioned in perfect rhythm began operating under conflicting directives. Engineers found themselves caught between allegiances, some still loyal to Horner, others gravitating toward the increasingly assertive Verstappen-Marko axis. The internal climate shifted from focused intensity to quiet rebellion. And while the team continued to perform on track, the cracks behind the scenes grew too large to hide. What had once been a unified powerhouse became divided. Horner, aware of the shifting dynamics, tried to assert his authority, but his usual tactics fell flat. The board, under pressure to resolve the growing unrest, made the call. And just like that, the man who led the team from its infancy to its golden age was gone. The aftermath was instant and chaotic. Staff were blindsided. Some stood frozen in disbelief. Others quietly packed up, already sensing that Red Bull's culture had changed forever. Outside, rival teams scrambled to understand what this power vacuum might mean, while fans flooded social media with disbelief. Journalists dug deeper, uncovering a web of internal tension that had long been simmering beneath the surface. Christian Horner didn't issue a statement. He disappeared. The silence was deafening. No one knows if he'll resurface at another team, or if he's planning a return in another form. But one thing is certain. His exit has triggered a chain reaction that will echo through every corner of the sport. Red Bull may still be fast, still be fierce, but the engine behind its identity is no longer there. And the consequences of that may just be beginning. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. Before anything had been formally confirmed, before official memos were circulated or press conferences scheduled, those tuned into Formula One's inner workings could feel a shift unfolding behind the scenes. It wasn't loud or dramatic at first. It came in quiet resignations, hushed meetings, and subtle changes in behavior. The first real sign of instability emerged when Adrian Newey, the design genius behind Red Bull's most dominant machines, made the choice to walk away. His departure wasn't explosive, but its message was thunderous. When a man like Newey leaves, it signals more than a career decision. It reveals a fracture somewhere deep within the team's foundation. What followed confirmed it wasn't isolated. Rob Marshall exited shortly after, then Jonathan Wheatley, a crucial figure in race operations, and Will Courtney, another key technical leader. These weren't just names on payroll, they were the architects of Red Bull's dominance. Their departures weren't routine. They were deliberate steps away from something that no longer felt sustainable. And while Christian Horner remained outwardly calm, presenting a stable front, the erosion beneath him had begun. All the while, Max Verstappen, the center of the Red Bull universe, began pulling back. He wasn't as vocal, not as visibly engaged, no longer the fierce team-first competitor he had always been. When asked about his future, his answers became vague. When discussions turned toward long-term plans, he offered nothing solid. For Verstappen, who is known for speaking plainly and never dodging a subject, this silence felt intentional. And when rumors surfaced that Mercedes had opened discussions with his management, things turned from uneasy to urgent. The idea of Verstappen leaving wasn't just a competitive threat, it was an existential one. He was the face of the brand, the anchor of their performance, and the reason so many sponsors, engineers, and partners were attached to the team. The mere possibility of him joining a rival sent Red Bull into crisis mode. And soon, a whisper became a statement. Verstappen had drawn a line: either Horner leaves, or he does. No one inside the team wanted to believe it. But the ultimatum didn't need to be shouted. It was understood. The leadership, facing the possibility of losing the most dominant driver of the era, acted quickly. Horner, the man who had built the operation from its infancy into a championship machine, was forced out. There was no fanfare. No drawn-out farewell. Just a clean, cold end to an era that had once seemed untouchable. And yet, Horner's story wasn't over, it was only evolving. The calls started almost immediately. Key figures across the sport and beyond began reaching out, not to offer sympathy, but to pitch opportunities. Despite the controversy, his value hadn't vanished. He still possessed decades of experience, an unmatched political instinct, and a reputation for building winning cultures from scratch. He wasn't viewed as damaged, he was seen as available. Now free from the internal struggles and power plays, Horner holds something rare in Formula One: perspective with no restrictions. Whether he aligns with a new manufacturer, joins forces with silent backers to launch something fresh, or reinvents himself inside another team structure, one truth remains: he's far from done. And for those who underestimated him, who believed exile meant defeat, they may soon discover that a man no longer bound by obligation can become more dangerous than ever. Mere moments after the announcement of Christian Horner's forced departure from Red Bull, a powerful wave of speculation swept through the paddock, suggesting that Ferrari had swiftly rekindled discreet discussions with the Englishman, conversations that had once been quietly initiated but later shut down by Horner himself. At the time, he dismissed the approach with typical confidence, joking about his lack of Italian and insisting his loyalty to Red Bull was unshakable. But that was before the floor fell out from beneath him. Before Red Bull made the decision for him. Now, freed from his former allegiances and still burning with ambition, Horner stands at a moment of reinvention. And Ferrari, with its chaos, prestige, and hunger for leadership, may be offering exactly what he needs. Not a comeback, but a rebirth. Ferrari is teetering on the edge of something transformative, but right now, it's gripped by uncertainty. Frederic Vasseur, brought in to steady the ship, has struggled to impose direction. Despite sporadic podiums, the Scuderia remains plagued by indecision, uneven form, and a lingering sense of disarray. The dream of title contention feels like a distant echo, muffled by internal politics and a lack of clear authority. The paddock knows it, the fans feel it, and the leadership can no longer ignore it. Inside the team, fractures have grown deeper. What should have been a dynamic duo, Lewis Hamilton, the seven-time world champion chasing one final legacy, and Charles Leclerc, the young prodigy long positioned as the team's future, has instead become a source of tension. Leclerc, embedded within Ferrari's ecosystem, holds sway in subtle ways: stronger political capital, closer ties with decision-makers, and a more influential presence in the engineering room. Hamilton, despite his status and experience, has found himself increasingly sidelined, receiving upgrades late, excluded from key data sessions, and growing more frustrated with each race weekend. The sense of imbalance is no longer whispered behind closed doors. It's obvious on the timing screens and visible in the body language within the garage. Now, with Horner available, Ferrari's top brass is quietly rethinking everything. John Elkann and Benedetto Vigna, once firm in their commitment to Vasseur through the next regulation cycle, are reportedly re-evaluating that stance. The thought of Horner taking the reins of F1's most legendary team, bringing with him a legacy of championship management, driver diplomacy, and ruthless efficiency, is almost impossible to ignore. He's not just a team principal. He's a strategist, a politician, a motivator, and, above all, a builder of dynasties. His ability to unite divided garages is unrivaled. At Red Bull, he navigated the storms of driver conflict and corporate infighting with a blend of charm and control. He knows how to let talent flourish without letting it fracture the system. That's exactly what Ferrari needs: a firm hand, a clear voice, and someone who doesn't flinch when the spotlight burns hottest. Whispers of private meetings are growing louder. Talks that were once theoretical are now being treated as inevitable. Horner wouldn't arrive alone. He'd bring experience, structure, and a winning mentality that Ferrari hasn't truly embraced in years. And with him, Hamilton might find the leadership he's been missing, the respect he's earned, and the platform he needs to write the final, and perhaps most dramatic chapter of his career. Leclerc, too, would face a reset. The comfort of internal favoritism would be replaced by performance-driven accountability. Horner doesn't do sentiment, he does results. And in that pressure cooker, both drivers could thrive or crumble. Either way, the status quo would be shattered. The Formula One world is watching. Something is building. And if Horner does walk through the gates of Maranello, it won't just be a change, it'll be a reckoning. Christian Horner's influence in modern Formula One goes far beyond numbers or trophies. It's defined by transformation, resilience, and mastery under fire. His name is synonymous with evolution, with taking chaos and turning it into calculated dominance. He didn't just oversee a championship team, he engineered a revolution. From nurturing a young Sebastian Vettel into a four-time world champion to guiding Red Bull through a tumultuous breakup with Renault, Horner proved he wasn't just a strategist. He was a visionary who could rebuild empires from rubble. When many doubted Red Bull's future after Renault, he forged a partnership with Honda that brought the team back to the front. What looked like a risk turned out to be a stroke of genius. Perhaps his most remarkable feat came when he led Max Verstappen to a title in a season where the car wasn't the fastest on paper. It was a victory achieved not by brute force, but by intelligence, timing, and nerve. Every pit call, every setup tweak, every gamble paid off, not because they were lucky, but because Horner turned pressure into opportunity. He made winning under adversity look like art. That level of leadership is exactly what Ferrari has been missing. For years, they've struggled with inconsistency, indecision, and internal noise. While the machinery often had potential, execution always fell short. With Horner, that would change. He doesn't just build race-winning cars, he constructs entire ecosystems where every component, from engineers to strategy analysts, functions with clarity and shared purpose. His presence would signal a complete cultural overhaul, bringing structure, intensity, and a refusal to tolerate mediocrity. But this move, if it happens, wouldn't just be about fixing Ferrari. For Horner, it would be deeply personal. After being slowly pushed aside by the very system he once built at Red Bull, leading Ferrari back to greatness would be the most powerful kind of redemption. It wouldn't just re-establish his credibility, it would redefine it. Restoring Ferrari would be the ultimate act of reinvention, and Horner knows exactly how to pull it off. For Lewis Hamilton, this potential alliance would be more than welcome. Their rivalry once dominated headlines, Horner versus Mercedes, Max versus Lewis, but now, both find themselves craving something deeper, a clean slate, a shot at legacy beyond numbers. Hamilton's time at Mercedes ended in shadows, surrounded by tension and a creeping sense of lost control. Ferrari was supposed to be a fresh start, but without order, it risked becoming another political minefield. Horner's arrival could change that instantly. Behind the scenes, it's believed he reached out to Hamilton almost immediately after his Ferrari deal was announced. Not as a boss, but as a partner. He offered transparency, stability, and the kind of support Hamilton hadn't felt in years. No more internal sabotage, no more mixed messages, just focus, performance, and unity. For Hamilton, it was more than a promise. It was an invitation to finally unleash his full potential again. Together, they represent not just talent and leadership, but a shared hunger to prove something. Two battle-scarred figures, once enemies, now with a chance to build something iconic. If they succeed, it won't just change Ferrari, it will reshape the entire narrative of the sport. What they're chasing isn't just wins. It's legacy, rewritten on their own terms. The conversation that unfolded between Christian Horner and Lewis Hamilton wasn't casual, and it wasn't rehearsed. It was deeply personal, raw, and charged with long-suppressed emotion. There were no filters, no political maneuvering, just truth, blunt, honest, and overdue. Horner didn't hold back. He looked Hamilton in the eye and confirmed what the 7-time world champion had long suspected but never had the power to prove. The favoritism, the bias, the skewed development paths, it had all happened. Hamilton's car had, on multiple occasions, been left behind in terms of upgrades, while innovations were rushed to Charles Leclerc. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was calculated, and now, finally, it was acknowledged by someone with the authority to expose it. Hamilton, always measured, didn't explode with rage. Instead, he stood in still disbelief, stunned by the clarity of Horner's words but grateful for the transparency. For years, he'd felt sidelined within an organization that claimed equality while quietly tipping the scales. Now, the fog had lifted. He wasn't imagining it. His instincts had been right all along. What followed from Horner wasn't pity or regret, it was a bold vision. He laid out a complete restructuring plan, revamp the technical department, eliminate political favoritism, bring in third-party consultants, and above all, establish a system where every decision would be made based on performance metrics, not popularity or commercial appeal. Under Horner, every team member would be treated equally. There would be no silent preferences, no hidden agendas. The driver who delivered would lead, not because of branding, but because of results. Hamilton saw in that vision the one thing he had been missing for years: fairness. He didn't want handouts. He wanted a level playing field. And Horner wasn't just promising one, he was designing it from the ground up. While this new alliance was quietly forming in Italy, Red Bull was starting to unravel. With Horner gone, the operation began to lose its rhythm. Laurent Mekies stepped in, but he lacked the magnetic control and ruthless clarity Horner had enforced. Max Verstappen's loyalty, once rock solid, started to show signs of erosion. The stability that once defined Red Bull began to shake. Verstappen, who thrived in controlled chaos under Horner, now found himself surrounded by uncertainty. Rumors of an exit grew louder. And without him, Red Bull's future could hinge on inexperienced talents like Isaac Hadjar or Ayumu Iwasa, promising drivers, yes, but far from guarantees. The empire that once dominated through precision now risked collapsing under its own weight. The systems Horner had built, the discipline he demanded, the strategic brilliance he maintained, all of it now appeared fragile without him. The team that once feared nothing now feared the future. But Horner wasn't looking back. He wasn't dwelling on what he lost. He was focused entirely on what came next. Unshackled, sharper than ever, and driven by the kind of fire only rejection can ignite, he had one goal: to build something that could not be ignored. Alongside Hamilton, he wasn't chasing validation. He was chasing transformation. Two forces, misunderstood and underestimated, now aligned in purpose. Formula may first not be ready, but change is coming. And it's coming fast.